Are you ready for some good news? God is calling a great multitude that no one can number from every nation, from all tribes and peoples and languages. A people who, though are completely unworthy, God has established as a holy nation that have been transformed by the truth of the gospel. Every time we miss the mark, every time we sin, the accuser runs before the Father and says, look at the ways that they have violated your holiness. And every time Jesus stands up and says, I already paid the price for that. Every time we miss the mark, our accuser stands to condemn. And every time we miss the mark, Jesus says, I've paid the price for that. Jesus is constantly reminding our enemy and constantly reminding the Father that He has paid the penalty for our sins. And so with the Father, it is as far as the east is from the west, and our redemption is secure. One of the interesting things that I think happens in the devil's attack of us as Christians is he tries to confuse us, and instead of turning Jesus into an advocate, he tries to turn him into an adversary. If he can mentally convince us that Jesus is not our advocate, He's not our mediator, He's not our great high priest, but instead He's our accuser, we spend our whole life trying to make Jesus happy, trying to please Jesus, trying to earn His affection. And what happens is that ultimately we spend our whole life doing, churning, working, trying to make sure that Jesus' affection for us isn't removed. If Satan can just convince us that Jesus isn't our advocate, but He's our adversary, then he steals the joy of redemption and removes the power of the gospel for victory in your life. Jesus never prayed, deliver them from the evil one, and the Father says, well, you know, that's not really my will, so I'm just going to let it happen. That's not how it happens. Jesus and the Father are one in mind, and so when Jesus prays, He's praying the will of the Father. Deliver them from the evil one. The promise for the Christian is this, that God loved us so much that He sent His only begotten Son so that the accuser loses. God's victory over sin in your life at this very moment is a foretaste of a coming glory. Jesus, who died in our place for our sins, who lived the life that we could never live in perfect obedience to the Father, allowed Himself to be nailed to the cross, not because He was tricked or an unwitting bystander, but instead Jesus chose and said, the hour has come, take me to the cross. He walks of His own choosing to the cross where He died the death I should have died because I rejected God's holiness and best for me. And in that moment, all of human history has found its moment, the moment in which it's been pointing towards. And in that moment, Jesus takes the penalty that was rightfully mine, and the Father's wrath that was due me for my sin is poured out on His only begotten Son. And Jesus dies the death I rightfully should have died. And in that moment, in the cosmos, something powerful, gospel-centered, cosmos-altering happens. Jesus takes my sin, and I receive the benefit of His righteousness, which is my new standing as a holy vessel of a holy God who was welcomed once and for all into the Holy of Holies with my good and powerful Father. It can never be taken away because of my own failures. As a matter of fact, because Jesus paid the penalty for all of my sin in the past and all of my sin to come, the Father, when I miss the mark, draws near to me and says, I've got this. Let me show you a better way. You are God's chosen people, a holy nation, set apart to glorify God and to enjoy Him forever. Never, ever allow the enemy to whisper in your ear that you don't measure up, that you're not good enough, that you can't be loved, that God can never use you. Because every time the enemy stands up and talks about all of the ways in which we miss the mark, Jesus, our great high priest, our mediator, stands up and says, I have been consecrated, set apart on their behalf. They get the victory. They get the win. They get the benefit of my holiness. They are my children. You stand down, enemy. You have no accusation against the children of the Most High King. And that's the gospel.